everybody, and welcome to another Spark Ninja podcast. It's Dave and Dave here. It's Saturday, isn't it? Is it Saturday?
Yeah, it's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday. It's a day off,
Monday.
apparently. And we are just doing a little catch up and going through some little bits that we wanted to have a little talk about. So, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's been a busy, adventurous week in the world of electrical industry, installations and designs and commissionings and all sorts.
Where have you been working?
I started off my week in the office for a couple of days doing some designs for some generators in parallel with the supply. Well, I say in parallel, it's emergency backup for sprinkler pump houses for high-rise blocks of flats, all the way in lovely sunny Scotland.
Oh, lovely.
So that's what I've been doing in the office. I've been building the electrical OMs, double checking everything by manual, making sure that our fault levels correct, our earthing systems are all in place, cabling sizes, the immersions, the sprinkler systems, the emergency lighting in the plant rooms and the sockets, and utilize power everywhere, and a lot of ATSs, a lot of automatic transfer switches to procure and look through and see how they're going to operate. So I started my Monday and Tuesday off in the office doing some lovely designs. So that was fun. So it works out about 8 designs in total. I have one for the supply side of things from the DNO, and then another design based on a generator genset. So there's 2 different sort of designs on the same system, but 2 different supply characteristics.
Yes, that's always a fun part of design is when you work on the alternative characteristic, because sometimes that supply characteristic data is sometimes hard. I remember many times having to work trying to get like blood out of a stone from different UPS manufacturers to understand what the actual supply characteristics are when you go into that mode. This last week we did the energy storage course. So we had the battery storage course running, playing around with some inverters. Had some hybrid inverters that ran on. I got in some brand new batteries. This company's got this new range out, and they brought out this 50-volt rated battery that came in, so I had to upgrade my inverter for that. I had a good couple of lads on that, running one of our initial courses on the battery storage. Went fine. The books, the code of practice, these new code of practice dot books, the EV, the solar, the battery, they've got so much information in them. It just feels very hard to get it all into the training time. And in the training time that we had for the storage course, we got to the point where I was just literally just going, and here's more information. We were like, hang on, can we just do an assessment now? Because it was just, there's so much information in those books, and it's quite hard to really navigate them. I did have a copy of the Electrician's Guide to Domestic Storage Systems that they've published since. A bit more user-friendly to read, but those codes of practice are a little bit of a struggle for navigating in exam conditions. We did that, and I then did some consultancy visits, a couple of site audits, duty holder audits, which is basically where I go to a company, I look at their... I kind of immediately, as soon as I arrive in their car park, start doing an observation from an electrical safety standpoint, observing things like emergency luminaires, points of emphasis, passing width, and all that stuff. And then I look at signing in, signing out, rules, contractor control. And so I got to this place, and they said, well, it was an aggregate site, so you got to do our site induction. I was like, yeah, fine, yeah, great. And I sat down and I read 3 or 4 pages, and it was just like tick here, tick here, tick here, tick there, and boom, you were through. So I had a little observation of people working. I looked at the assessments just to make sure they had enough understanding on what competencies were required for their guys on site. They had some real work to do with regards to the risk of the proximity to ATEX rated equipment, or the need for ATEX rated equipment on their site. And then I did a course. I delivered an online unit with an American company, so I was working until like silly hours the other night for their thermal imaging courses. So I did a bit of online late night tutoring to a load of people over in America. And then I've basically been doing portfolios for the past few days. I've got a backlog of portfolios that I need to review and kind of either get signed off or get feedback to the guys. So I'm basically been doing that also today, just catching up, if you will, trying to catch up with things. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, and I like that. I like a bit of training, a bit of consultancy, a little bit of online stuff as well. I'm trying to get my head into gear for getting some more stuff onto the actual social media accounts, the Facebook groups, and obviously the YouTube, because I know that obviously I get a lot of demand for 2396 design stuff. I get a lot of demand for inspection and testing, and I will start putting a lot of effort into trying to get some more regular stuff out in those areas in particular. Probably middle of August time now. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to.
Question about the storage course, if I don't mind.
Oh yes, go for it, mate.
So we going like we are with EV, where we're going to have a domestic and a commercial and a large scale kind of energy storage course in the future.
It needs to happen. It's not there now. What's currently done is something that obviously BPEC Logic initially ran with the AL, and now City and Guilds have it. The main objective of it was to be able to assess arc flash risk for the batteries, but mainly the point of it is to address the potential of self-consumption of PV generation. So the main exercises for an awful lot of the first courses was what size is your array? How many hours of the week are you working? Do you work from home? Do you work elsewhere? To then quantify how many hours there are left in a day where there's no real demand on the home, to then determine how many watt hours of energy there is left that you're maybe just feeding back to the grid or not using, to then determine what size batteries you would need to consume or store as much of that energy as possible. Because with batteries, they're so expensive. What you can't do is do an under calculation where they lose energy still, or do an over calculation where actually they've wasted £3,000 or £4,000 on batteries that they'll never charge because they're consuming it. So the main focus of it really was about self-consumption of PV. It was when I did the course. The course is still mostly framed that way. There has been some development, but there will need to be a bit like large scale. They're now doing work on solar. There's a team, GTEC and a few are running this team looking at the benefit of solar farms, and they'll need to do the same with battery storage, because it's just there's a significant difference in sizing, in protection, and in obviously risk with regards to the actual way that the amount of energy that is in there. I cover a little bit of it, the larger stuff. I use some examples about incidences that happened in Arizona, for example. But right now the course is like with all things. With training, they'll always try to dampen the minimum that they need to achieve the outcome, but deliver it to the most people. So that's why often standards are set very, very low, because then they can deliver it to the largest pool to then return on the investment in developing the qualifications. And that means those of us who work maybe in the higher end of the space or the more technical end of the space with much more technical infrastructure, much more risk to manage larger complex systems, very often training for us is not achieved, not considered, or they just don't want to bother. Same situation happened with 7909. When City and Guild said there's not enough interest in this for us to create a qualification in this. If there's not enough interest, then the organisations we are familiar with just won't go down that way. But there needs to be. There does need to be.
Yeah, it just sounds like it's going to go the way of the EV courses, and like you said, it's a lot to get in if you're trying to put all that information into a course.
Well, it's too much, even domestically. I mean, we don't have any time. In the couple of days that it's been kind of put down, we have just about enough time to do a couple of example calculations looking at different levels of energy, about what the watt hours would be, and a couple of arc flash calculations for working boundaries. We don't really touch on the different methods that we can utilize batteries for, such as just connecting them to an AC system to then generate to then just draw power at night time, where we don't do any sizing for that. So there's quite a lot of missed opportunity with the course, but it's just the minimum. It's just the minimum. The guidance that MCS have, for self-consumption and stuff is still very valid. It's old, but it's still used and valid. But that's all that we have with those courses, really. I think that there needs to be another innovation in there. But the industry just wants a course and just throws it at people, and that's kind of where things are.
I think, like with any course, before I would go, I'd put a lot of hours into reading over the COPs and any information research I can. Mainly because I just don't want to stress on the week of a course trying to get it all in my head.
It's so important to do that, though, because there are many people who just goes on a course and they rely the course to be where they do all their learning. But these tutors who have to do so much in such a short window of time, they're not magicians. And with every course I do, when I'm finishing the course off, I'll be going, right, now here's your next point. Read this, read this, read this. You've got to always carry on the learning. And so, some actual initial learning is very, very much favourable. Very favourable indeed. Sorry, there's a message from a gentleman at napping. I'll read that later. But a lot of people just think, the window of time in the course will do it. I'll go in, I'll get my certificate, I'll leave. Unfortunately, that's how training is packaged. But if you want to learn the subject, then get the code early, read the code. By all means, look up, the electrician's guide. It's 50 odd quid, but it's a reasonably good book. But I did some research outside of that. MCS themselves had lots of free stuff to download, and there was lots of manufacturer stuff, which basically gave me everything I needed anyway. And there are articles about the arc flash calculations and stuff, and it's very simple. There's just two basic calculations: one for energy, one for distance. And it's just a bit of selection criteria for a K factor with regards to your boundaries and stuff. Batteries enclosed, batteries not enclosed, that kind of thing. It's quite simple, to be fair. But biggest thing is you need to know, obviously, the voltage of your batteries, the current that your batteries create, how many of them you connect into a string and then in parallel to create a current and a voltage, just like a PV array. You work out your fault current energy, then with that you can calculate it. It's very simple in comparison to arc flash calculations that we use for supply systems. These are much more easy to manage and easy to decide because it's just batteries. It's a much more simple calculation. So that bit I enjoyed. I enjoyed teasing and stepping into that space. And it's about time we stepped into arc flash space in our sector. It's like I've been pushing for years.
Definitely coming. I noticed when everything that I'm doing my designs and specs for clients, a lot of low smoke, zero halogen stuff is coming in. We're getting requests for LSF or LSOH trunking conduits.
There must be a time where it would be more expensive not to have that, because I should imagine an awful lot of the supply chain is now asking for low smoke, surely.
It's interesting because when you try to procure and buy this stuff, it's actually hard to find. The wholesalers don't really know about it. They could find the conduit tube.
Yeah.
They couldn't find the terminal boxes or the through boxes or the right angles or saddles.
So maybe they were just thinking it's just cable.
They couldn't find it. It was new to them. It's kind of like back in the day when I used to know about the types of RTD before it came to that thing.
You didn't understand it at first.
I know they only come in BCD. There's a K and a Z, but they didn't know about that. I'm not expecting the wholesalers to be electricians because sometimes it used to be a former electrician. Nowadays, not so much. So you kind of educating them at the same time.
I think, and I think this is the difference between designing and just being a Sparky. That kind of a lot of Sparks. They've got obviously stock in a vehicle, stock in a unit somewhere. And they go to the same 2 or 3 wholesalers on routine, and then they'll communicate with them. When you kind of up your design a bit, you probably will start by going to the manufacturers to make sure that the manufacturer's data is as you need, to then make sure the manufacturers agree that their equipment is made for the purpose that you intend, and then from there you can then communicate with your wholesaler or ask that manufacturer for the wholesalers in your area to communicate with. So it's about who you interact with. And I did it the same one on tools. Most of us will just go to the wholesale and go, "Have you got this, or this?" And then if there's a no, Some will go yeah, or yeah tomorrow. Or I remember like when I used to use a lot of MK and stuff. This is like 20 years ago. MK were always Monday, on Monday next week. That's when the MK stuff will come in. So I have all that kind of memory in my head for if I need this, it would be that kind of timeline. But I'd always hang around the same half a dozen manufacturers. Just it's just it's kind of like a branding kind of thing that electricians would have. They use the one or two brands. But when you get to complex designs, you got to read the spec and you got to look at the standards, and you can easily use shoot from the hip designs, but then suddenly your spec in front of you requires a new complexity, such as low smoke as an example. And if you just go and get the normal cable, if you go and get the normal switch gear, you may find that actually you fall into that trap where you haven't quite selected it correctly.
You can also have an issue where it comes up, and I've had this issue before with certain kit. You might think, I want to buy this type of switch gear, maybe on price. You go to the, say, higher brand, sort of more expensive, you get all the data, all the technical support. I found that when we looked at some isolators, we contacted a technical department, and we required 100 milliseconds KA level at 13 KA. Their device saying 7. So you've got to be careful you're buying and installing.
Yeah, well, again, when you're getting to such a when you're looking at those curves and you're trying to be very precise about obviously selectivity and how those curves behave, you need to get the manufacturer's declarations. You need to get them on board in your design, part of your design. This is where we get to that point where 7671 really would just lean on that manufacturer instructions, manufacturer information, because there's not enough in there to work with at that point.
It's interesting when you get to fault levels, especially when you get gen sets in parallel with supplies, and the amazing effect that your fault current levels get awfully higher.
They get a lot higher, and it's the same like it with standard cables. Our sizing of our cables, you're saying in parallel.
Yeah, in parallel, so we have to make sure the KA can survive.
We have to add those demands together, don't we? You have to add the generation design current, or the IG along to the IN. Isn't it INA or something, which is the rated current including all the generation? But yeah, it has to add up. It's something that I think I read an article about that not too long ago. It's like it's in the that's actually in the code practice for storage, because they're generators, they're storage systems. So when we size systems in the storage, on the EESS course, we have to go into that and we have to look at how to work that out. I'd like to do calculations and a design with that in mind. The course just doesn't have enough time, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I was thinking, does it do that in that course?
No, it's more a case of the multiple choice assessment will ask us to know what it would be. Would it be IB, IN, INA, etc.? And it's just, what is it, not use it. But again, there's a difference between that course and what would be a better course.
I'm only quizzing you so much because I'm going to take the course soon. So
so that's the only little difference, really. But no, back to what you said. It could definitely do with being revamped for like they did with the large scale EV. And it's not everyone's cup of tea. And so many people think courses, and all I can say is because maybe you went on courses that were just there because they were a blockade to you progressing. Courses aren't for everybody, but those who want to learn more about things or develop themselves in certain spaces, many courses available just don't do that. We were speaking with a guy the other day who did his EV course, and he did it in a few hours on one day, a 1 day hour, course, and it's like. He's somebody who wants to do better. He wants to learn. But he was put on a course, and it was a 1 day course by a provider, the EAL version of the small commercial domestic. And he's at home by 4 o'clock, having passed. But he's got loads of questions to ask, and loads more questions, but he's not got the opportunity because they scrammed all of that into that short period of time. And I tell you, when that happens, all they're doing is they're focusing. They know the assessment. They go, right, there's the assessment. Let's get them to pass that by doing that first, and that's the way it works. Unfortunately, I honestly think part of the whole competency thing should be about the way that with behaviours that training companies should be heavily vetted against that. But awarding organisations should as well. I mean, there are many. We've had in the past 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 companies go down, big training companies, and I've had to help with loads of learners, trying to get them onto new courses, keep them up to date while they're moving from one course to the other. But one company had like hundreds of people enrolled on a course, with 3 people on the books as staff. Everyone else was freelancing. Why an organisation would allow so many qualifications to be enrolled to a company where the organisational structure showed they had 3 people? To me that just screams of potential malpractice and issues. I've asked a question, I get nothing back. That's the way the industry works, unfortunately. I have this rule: I won't have more than 20 people on a portfolio at once. Just can't manage it. I can barely manage the numbers that we've got. So we'll manage the workflow, but we have probably 3 or 4 spaces now. But if it fills up, we'll just make the course full, because you can't manage that amount of people. Not to do it properly anyway. All right. So do you know what? I got really peeved earlier on.
Go on.
My wife was on a WhatsApp thing. We have her and her mum kind of share this mobile home up in the north from where we are, up in north of Newcastle. Nice place. It's got a football court, a pitch. It's got a swimming pool. So it's great in this time of year where you don't know what to do with the kids. You can just, chuck up there for a few days at a time, a couple of times even. But the mobile home park has kind of changed its decision on things, where all the occupants, all the tenants, they buy the home and they have like a few grand they give to the site for the pitch, but they're owned. They're not rented, so they own their home. And it was a rule that they were never able to rent them. So they weren't allowed to turn the mobile home into an Airbnb. And the idea would be, this is a community. So when you go there every summer, you see the same people, and it's like a home from home. Well, they changed the rule on that last year, and they're going to let people start letting it out. So they can Airbnb it, they can have it as a mobile home. And this has created a bit of a stink, because everyone's like, oh, no, because we don't know people, we don't know who you are. And people have got really pissed off with it. So they created this WhatsApp group to try and fight against the machine that is the main site. And this week, they've announced to all of them, because it's 5 years now since, obviously, the introduction of the legislation for electrical safety in rented or whatever property. I've forgotten the name of the thing. So they've now said that they are going to have a contractor come in, and all of the owners have to then pay to have their caravans tested at £100 a go. All right, and they're going in uproar. Well, we own it. We're not letting it. We're not renting it. Why do we have to do this? And the caravan park has been a bit naughty. There's an awful lot wrong with the caravan park, to be fair, but they've been a bit naughty because these people aren't renting their caravans; they own them. But because they now have this rule where they let some rent, they're putting on everyone that they'll get a contractor and they'll have to pay £100 each for their van to be checked with a full EICR. And so she asked, but my wife asked me if I could offer some input. And I said, well, you don't need an EICR. The legislation is not applicable if you're not actually renting or letting the property if you own it. And an EICR for a caravan, £100. If they're going to arrange it where one company goes in and just goes boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, like that, they're going to spend probably no more than about 45 minutes to an hour, because in the mobile home, it's a factory installation. All they're going to be looking at is the hookup point, the connection point, which is the worst bit, which is the caravan site, and they'll test some ADS and some ZSs and RCD testing. All the RCDs will be the wrong type. The connection on the hookups will be in Arctic Blue Flex, so they wouldn't comply anyway. So I gave some feedback on that. And then this one woman said, yeah, £100 is too much. Now, I was agreeing that it's going to be too much if it's going to be done in that way. But then she said, our house only costs us 80 quid. I was like, all right. So as soon as I saw this woman say, our house should only cost us 80 quid, it shouldn't cost any more than that. I went, right, I have no more help. You should get proper electricians. I'm on the side of electricians. Charge them all. I don't care. So I've had this huge this community of people on WhatsApp going, help us, and then they said electricians should only charge 80 quid for my house. I went, bye, and I've told them, pay the electricians their money.
Otherwise, it wasn't £40.
Yeah. I was happily helping them to understand it, that, you know, it is a bit steep and it isn't really that much and you don't really need it. When this woman said 80 quid for her house shouldn't cost any more than that, I was like, my services are no longer helpful here. Good luck to all of you. I left the group. So now they're all like going to my wife, where's he gone? Where's he gone? We need his help. And she's like, he's not available. So yeah, whole caravan park of community. So when I go up there, probably in a couple of weeks' time, I'll probably get a load of people coming up to me. Can you look at this? Can you look at this? And I'll be like, no. Get an electrician in.
Yes, it's sad to see the industry go that way, where people will do and devalue the testing to so little.
We did it ourselves. When legislation came out 5 years ago, the first thing I saw on LinkedIn, there was a girl who's got an electrical company, and she announced she had a bronze, silver, gold EICR strategy for landlords. So bronze would be visual only, gold would be like some kind of supply check, whilst gold would be a full EICR. And I said, the second you put it in the hand of the landlord to determine the quality of the value of that service, you basically just fucked it for the industry where there's an opportunity to do it properly. And you haven't got to charge everyone too much money, but we need to do the job. We need to do the work properly. It's about finding that middle space. But everyone is so desperate to do the minimum to get the quantity, and that's why the whole thing's just it's just a whole stinking mess.
Yeah, I find that that nice table 3.4 in a certain guidance note doesn't really help matters.
Not at all. Not at all. Because there's always going to be people who will have differences of opinion. And often our trade organisations that we think are there to help us, they're actually going to be there to help other parties who are interested in the way we do things. So when we it happened with surge protection, it happened obviously with double insulation. It will happen with this, where instead of giving us the opportunity to do things well and do them right, we'll be told we don't need to do it, and if we do it, only do it for this much. And there'll be contractors that will meet that, and as long as there are contractors that meet that, we'll fail to progress, and we'll just keep things as low as they are.
I'm quite lucky in what I do and who we work for. I'm away from that world. They like to do things right, and they don't buy cheap switchgear. We're full like Snyder everywhere. It's all done properly with many designers.
You kind of reach that. There are different tiers, isn't there, of how you actually perform as contractors. And there are so many contractors that will basically have to, almost beg to actually have people consider them doing the work they want to do, instead of having to kind of undervalue what they do with cheaper labour or quicker installations or inferior materials. Being able to do the job at a good pace with quality materials. There are spaces where you can still do that. Often you talk about multiple tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds, where there's significant reason as to why that kind of money being spent is just. But smaller commercial, it's harder to get that. It's definitely harder to get that, and that's just unfortunately the way it works. Now I've got a note here where we were talking before we got online, and I've put a note here about competent person schemes. And I wanted just to kind of... there's been lots of talk about CPS, NAPIT, NIC, and etc. And I just wanted to kind of just get your take on where we are with this, in your opinion, on what they're doing. I mean, you've owned your own business, haven't you?
Yeah, I did for 20 odd years, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously you were with a CPS all that time?
Yep, from 2005 onwards, I was with CPS, which was where I started. Yeah.
So they're not going to go away, and we had with E5, we're always asked become another CPS, and we were like, well, the model itself is the problem. So we kind of we went no. But where do you think we are as to the competent person schemes? If you think about the domestic part and the notification part, I get that. But generally, do you think that there are areas where we're getting it right, or they're getting it right, or we're fighting them all the time? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think there are differences in them. NAPIT and NIC, obviously, you come out and get assessed. With the ECA, it's more backed upon the NIC assessing you because they're sort of the same sort of place, and they're owned by Searchshore, I think it is. I do like the NIC for their QS model. If it's used right and implemented right, and it's followed, I think it's brilliant to have the QS model where you have competency checks for your staff, training matrices, you have day-to-day technical standards assessments. You're responsible for a lot, and I do like the assessments when I have them. I don't think NAPIT offered a QS model, which I think that why not? I mean, like, I think it's a good model. I think you're your own QS technically when you have your own company, but when you come into a company like with us with 20 odd staff running around, you have to make sure the competence in place.
Yeah,
I do like the NIC QS model. I like the support they give you, both NAPIT.
that's what
ECA.
I wanted to talk to you more about that, because again, contacting them for support, it's like I've never really had to get too involved with. I do hear a lot that they are actually pretty good on the phones and stuff. So have you had to use them before?
My favourite, because Darren Cranis is there. I
That's the
love to
ECA,
give
isn't
him
it?
some questions all the time, and I've known Darren for many years, and
Yeah.
before he was a technical manager, I knew him as well, and worked with him in projects. So he's a nice guy to talk to. We used to be on Facebook groups before all the ninja stuff
All that
started.
stuff went up.
So I know Darren quite well. So it's kind of like he has to answer my questions now. So you probably listen to this going, damn. So I like the ECA's approach. I can email them and they email back. They actually put it in.
I was affiliated with ECA because obviously all these companies. NAPIT have sent me a member certificate or something. I don't know what they sent me, but I did approach ECA because I was interested in the technical support and I was interested in kind of. All I wanted someone to bounce off of, because as a consultant / training provider who basically just talks to the wall a lot of the time. I rely an awful lot on my close colleagues, including yourself, about ideas and bouncing things off. But from a trade industry perspective, I approached ECA because they had the educational associate. That's probably the corner where I am. So I applied for that. I got that, and I used that. I attended a few of their things. I did a little bit of stuff with them. I had one of their guys on a course with me and all this stuff. It worked well, but then one day it just disappeared. Left. And then when I tried to log in, it said that my account had been, I think the wording was suspended. I was like, oh. And I had a chat with one of the lads who was on a course with me. He said, yeah, they've pulled it off. Because what companies were doing is, and all of them do this, is they'll get that, oh, I'll join that. And suddenly the ECA's badge will be on all of their stuff. They'll go, all their banners, all their websites, all their stuff. When they're probably putting no value in, and they're trying to get all the value out of that relationship. Now, to me, it was a relationship. I could provide value in, I can get value out, But I think an awful lot of them weren't doing that. Because it was a free one, by the way. It was a free association, educational associate. So they pulled it. And so I've since gone back, and I'm happy to kind of invest in one. And it's just trying to find one that suits me. Now, they do one for consultants, which I need to look into. Because it could be that consultancy, I can't remember if it's what the association name is. I'll have to speak to Darren about it at some point. Because I found that for the 6 months or so, their website, their resources was great. The old talks are on there. I had a little play with ERAMs and stuff.
Love ERAMs.
I thought it was very good. I thought it was very, very good. And then suddenly it just, login didn't work. I didn't create a stink about it. I understand exactly what's happened. People abuse the logos. I see it all the time. I knew exactly what happened, and I confirmed it when I had a chat with the guys there. So I need to sort something out. But I've looked at, the NAPIT one. I go on a couple of their webinars. They're pretty good. The NIC ones, I've not gone on the wire stuff lately, but people talk good about it. So
I think the NIC do and NAPIT do, to be honest, and the ECA do. They both do a model of live live webinars, chats
Yeah.
on various subjects.
Well, there used to be like a technical manual you could get. I have a copy of the old ECA one and an NIC one back when electrical safety first was called Electrical Safety Council and stuff. Lots of information, and with the internet, being able to put them into webinar format with discussions is fantastic. Yeah, but I just wanted to kind of discuss common person schemes on this podcast because I'm aware that an awful lot of the times I get drawn into negative discussions for an opinion, and I want to try and also kind of bounce that off with some positive discussions about what they do because I know that there is always we always kind of challenge what they do, and there are some big frustrations with some of the things that they do, but I wanted to kind of
one thing I'll add with
talk
the
about the
ECA,
benefits of it.
I
ECA,
do really like is the inclusion to standards. So they have like regional kind of groups where you have like a standards group where it's getting updated there, it put you in on it, and you can comment on the DPC and get a view of what's going on and have an input. And I think that from the ECA is really, really good and handy to have. And I really like that bit.
Yeah, I tried to get involved with mine in the Northeast, but at the time when I was an educational associate, the gentleman who was chairing it, he'd passed away, and it had gone to the lady who was kind of in temporary charge, and it was just not doing anything for a bit. I think the Northeast area, without I'm being perfectly honest, I think the Northeast area is a bit quiet in comparison. If I look on LinkedIn, I see there's lots ECAs doing lots in the Midlands and down in obviously in your direction. There's lots of activity. I guess Darren's part of that now. But up in the Northeast, it seems a bit quiet. And there's an awful lot of industry going on up here. So I was a bit surprised. And I looked into it, and a gentleman had passed away. But maybe if it picks up, I'll probably get more involved. Good. But no, I just wanted to kind of have a little talk about common person schemes. I wanted to make a deliberate effort just to kind of give them a little bit of a positive talk. Now, we got here a mention of 4 mil off a ring final circuit.
Yeah, this is a question from our Discord group where Richard always comes in with some really flying good questions. And I think this one's come up a few times on our forum groups as well, so I thought it was good to address it. The age-old, can I take a 4 mil from a ring final circuit to feed several sockets onwards? So spur off a spur, technically speaking. Cables rated for the current capacity, why not? Few issues in it I can think of. Where you're going to take this connection from. The equal sharing of the load under 4331204. Your on-site guide says something about 1/8 of the final total ring circuit for maybe a 2.5 spur. Does that still apply for a 4 mil? What loadings on the circuit are you going to overload legs? If this is a whole house ring final circuit, would I be wanting to take a 4 mil off to my garden shed and have loads of...
I can only think of one example where this may be something I would do. And my first question is, why would you? That's the question. Why would you?
Extend the ring.
Because, but if the ring needs that kind of power or extension, you may want to utilize another ring for division of installation. Exactly. So the example I'm thinking of could be a spur off of the ring, and the 4 mil being due to the length to the spur from the ring. Because of volt drop. Yeah.
Or the installation method, probably.
But then I'm thinking, how would you get the 4 mil connected into it? So I don't think you'd get that into a socket outlet with 225s.
No, 225s and more likely
as a spur. So joint. So yeah, I can see how you could potentially do it as a spur off of the ring if it's cut into the ring for volt drop. But every other reason, I'll be like, why would we do that?
Well, you technically either extend the ring, but like you said, you've also got other considerations like the volts drop of the circuit. You've got considerations of the volts drop of the spur off. Still got the same fault current conditions. Short circuit, is that still going to be within? You've got overload of the legs as an issue. You've got several aspects to it that you think this is just too much to design.
I think
you don't know what.
The problem with rings.
9 milliamp max.
The problem with rings, again, the other question is this a ring final for general purpose? So if it's a ring final for general purpose, we don't really have any control over the loading. You know,
The,
if it's a
the,
ring
the
final for
question-
controlled loads, then we'd be a lot more able to make a design decision about how the load is shared around the ring final. You see?
Yeah, the question was open to such debate because it didn't say whether it was going to be for a general domestic kind of installation, how many people are utilising this ring, what size ring is it coming from? Is it just a kitchen? Is it just the downstairs? Is it the upstairs? Is it the whole house? There's a lot of aspects to
And so
consider.
all of those again. So this comes back to the designer hat. All of those are the additional questions that the designer would need to ask to then be able to determine the suitability of the outcome. You know, a formula off of a ring final is fine in this scenario, but in this scenario, that scenario, and this other scenario, then maybe it wouldn't be. So it's about identifying the actual specifics, and we now actually like just a yes or a no. Can I turn this off of this? The answer is maybe. It depends on the utilization, and I don't know how many times I say the words utilization. But since I started delivering the design course, it's almost every other word I say these days, because we don't take so much of a study of utilization and how things are going to be used and consumed, and the timing, the thermal stresses on the system, for us to make these more specific design decisions. If we have no utilization data, then we have to go basic. And that's what I guess the on-site guide is really there to help with, where we limit ourselves to certain spaces and lengths for the worst case scenarios, or the presumed worst case scenarios. You know, but if we design things well, we can then stress the system down for a more accurate design. You know, there's so many other questions to go with that. But my first answer to that question is why. And then once I understand the reason why, I then consider the utilization, how you connect to it. You mentioned first of all, well, on the ring final, is it right in the middle of the ring, so the loading is shared evenly, or is it obviously not? Because we need to do a little video on this where we can just cover the loads on the ring finals and stuff. There's a simpler way that the IT guide on, where you have, what is it? Is it like 20 amp at the end, and you have obviously 26 amp typical demand, and it gets split with 13, and 20. But you can be a lot more accurate with methods that are covered.
You did do a video on it.
I'm looking for a book while I go the other way. I think are they covered in this? I think they may be covered in this. If not, yeah, I did cover them in that design course, but I need to do that as a video. We need to have a little play.
You did do one a long time ago. You did two videos on the subject of
Did I?
what at what point of the ring would be here, there, and you worked out what would go this way round and what would go that way round.
Oh, good. So I did that. Yeah. So that's that's the thing. If we have that information, and then we're able to then go, yeah, but 4 mil on, what's the loading? It's the loading that's key. Volt drop maybe is why you want 4 mil. But I mean, otherwise, you know, if you're trying to put some stress onto the system and you're going to put a lot of loading on that, that's still going to be on the ring. So you're over. You know, go back to 433. Your overload is going to be an issue because you're going to probably be testing that. You know, if you're
going to be a struggle.
Yeah. So
I think the theory comes from the lollipop circuit, the hybrid ring theory in reverse.
Got you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where the idea comes from.
Yeah. So the idea of the lollipop is you have the formula from the board, then you go to a ring at the end. Is that right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And it's kind of reversing that again. The difference there is obviously the 4 mil will then split around the ring, whilst obviously the other way the ring then goes onto the 4. But yeah, it's just science, numbers and stuff at that point. It's a fun one. I know.
Rich always comes up with the.
I can always appreciate the kind of questions that Richard comes up with. But I mean, to be fair, that just means he's always stretching his understanding of things, which is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, he's always going for it.
Yeah, but no, yeah, it's a good one. I would probably, in reality, try to avoid it. I try to avoid it.
I think once you get to a point where you have to design something so much to make its existence acceptable, I'm past it there, mate. You know, I don't even think electrical OM even has it built into its software to actually do that scenario.
Oh,
Anyway,
no. Yeah.
I'll have to ask them.
I try to avoid it. I understand the lollipop more. You
Yeah,
know, the
yeah.
idea of obviously getting cables, reference methods, wiring systems from A to B. You know, I understand that more as a practical solution in some scenarios. Still, I try to avoid that if possible. You know, that doesn't mean that it's a no. Just
Confusion.
if you can avoid it, yeah. Because again, it does create a bit of confusion with maintainability and stuff. But everything's
Imagine you go to the consumer unit, do your test, you've got a lovely 4 to 6 mil in there. You go to your sockets and you're like,
you got 225. You're
what's
yeah,
going on?
yeah. So the more you do things like that, the more you have to leave an instruction manual on
Oh,
what I've done for the next electrician, and a lot of us just don't do that. But no,
funny enough,
yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
when you mentioned like O&M sort of like things, that's one thing I do is when I'm doing my test sheets, even though I'm not the designer on this one job we're doing with 17 fuse boards to change,
Yeah,
distribution boards, I actually put it into OM and you let UK forms set up. So it's your standard form, but as I'm building it, it's laying out the
gives
design
you little
anyway.
layout diagrams.
My O&M has an actual design being done with a schematic, with everything that I can give to the client at the end. And it's technically no extra cost because I got to do all these sheets and input all the data anyway.
Yeah, no,
It
it's
will
good.
use estimates from R1, R2 to do its lengths, and I can check that. But this is existing circuits anyway, so I'm gonna have a bit of fun. Hopefully, it's one you can join me on.
Yeah, no, we'll have a look at that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Right, what have you been doing for CPD this week, mate?
Oh, lovely. Yes. Well, I was doing some toolbox talk, so I had to do a lot of CPD with regards my subject to safe isolation.
Safe isolation.
So out comes HSR 25, the AWR 1989, HSG 85, and out comes GS 38, and explaining to the guys about, not recommended use your Vault pens, your battery operated equipment, your multimeters, explaining why. Going through the lockout procedure we're going to implement, certification, the lockbox, the authorized person, the basic tag off system, the right locks for the right device, going over that. And then I thought, you know what? I'm looking at a lot of this guidance. It all starts with seek permission.
It does.
And I was like, well, hang on a minute. I was watching all of your 8 safe isolation things as a bit of a refresher. You got them in your membership.
Yes. Yeah.
They were done some time ago, but
They were,
brilliant articles. And the one thing I find that we miss, risk assessment of the area, EAWR 15, lighting and access. We're
accessibility.
turning off.
Yep.
Nobody's thinking, well, where's the temp lights for when we turn the power off? We're just seeking permission. I said, well, don't seek permission. Make sure you check your equipment. Well, don't seek permission yet. Sorry. Don't seek permission altogether. It's not good. Check your equipment first. You don't want to go seek for permission. Say we're going to turn off at this time and then go, oh, my tester's broke. It don't work. I can't use it. I'm going to have to go back and unseek permission and get everybody back at work and doing what we were doing or what might have been done to do our safe isolation. Going over all our equipment, checking it works, checking that the probes are correct, going over the risk area, the access, as I said, the lighting, the regulation 13 working their equipment that's dead, regulation 14 their live conductors. If at the end of the day, safe isolation is sort of live testing.
Yeah.
It's
always live until proven dead, isn't it?
We went over labeling and if it's true or not. You can go somewhere, something's labeled, something can turn it off, and it isn't that.
Yeah, I think I included that in the safe isolation training I had in that membership because I had an example. I think it was Schneider, where they have an electrical isolator where they use green and red, and a mechanical isolator that uses green and red, but they mean different things.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have I think green is on, and then green is it's not working, and then red is it's on, and red is it's off. So they don't align. And it's the little things like that catch you out. But I went to a company last Friday, big food picking company that I've had probably 15 years or so. I've been working with them. Panel risk assessment, and I'm in front of them. I go, hello, yeah. They're all like, they're agricultural engineers, which basically mean you rip anything together, they'll put it back together. They're like, they're proper engineers. But when it comes to the technical side of some things, the technical bits can be a little bit grey. So we had to make sure we covered panel risk assessment. So they go into panels all the time, and when they go into panels, they have to go in quite quick. And one of the guys actually said, fast. He said fast to me. I said, why fast? He said, because you may have 20 to 30 people picking crop in the field, and you're the person who needs to turn it back on so they can get the rest of the machine operational. And these are issues that I've had over many, many years. This particular company, they have like a hostel on site. They have people who will fly over and they'll stay for a season. So an awful lot of the people picking the crop, English isn't their first language. So you look around the site, all the language, there's 2 or 3 different languages and stuff. But we always have to make sure we deliver the safe processes. And for me, it's always electrical safety. So they'll also in panels have machinery risk. So I cover some machinery risk and pneumatics and all these other things. But we have to cover the electrical safety. And so I'll highlight HSR 25. Have you seen HSR 25? And they'll go, no. Even the manager, I'll be like, okay. HSG 85, no. So I'll then have to go backwards to then go forwards. So I'll introduce the document, I'll introduce the hierarchy of control, and we cover exactly that. So we look at obviously the elimination, and we look at when we don't eliminate, and we talk about what makes it safe and the absence of PPE. Can you do it safely without PPE? You bloody well should be able to, because PPE doesn't make things safer. So we kind of rewrite it that way. And I say, what could you do more? What could you do with more of? And they never pick up on light, space, time. It's just never here in their risk assessment that if they could engineer more time, more space, and more light in their work, then they can actually have a better control of the risk. Because they're in such a heavy-paced industry where their knee-jerk reaction is open it up, see a breaker in the off position, switch it back on. If you've got a breaker that's tripped for a reason. So we have to cover this bit in our training. Why is it tripped? Do you do a little bit of do you do a bit of detective work to see if there's any damage, any signs of water ingress, leak, anyone looking a bit fishy as if they've done something, any weird smell? These guys just go and they just reset it straight away. And if you set it straight away and it trips again, under certain manufacturers, you can't reset that device for many, many, many hours because the arc chute in there, the little arc chamber's taking all their energy. Their energy just goes to there. It doesn't go anywhere else. So it's thermal energy now that's in that device. And if you reset it once and it happens again, it's now had that energy twice. If we keep going and flashing this thing, there will be a point where the magnitude of energy will be so much that the thing will just go and it will break. The devices are not designed to be used that way in fault finding. But we don't design that and we don't write fault finding processes as to that. Because that's our method, isn't it? Our logical process is keep doing that until it stops. If it doesn't stop, we'll then have to escalate.
It's understanding the ICN and ICS levels, your
significantly, because you're introducing all that energy into that device for the second time. The first time tripped it for the first time. You look around, see no reason as to why it's tripped. You do it a second time, all the energy's gone back in that device. And if it's happening rapidly, then the energy's going to build up. And it will break. So it's the little things like that a lot of people don't understand. And that's one of the things that we cover on the panel risk assessment. We cover things like IPXXB, IPXXD, understanding the difference. We study older because a lot of their switchgear is old. There'll be 4293s, 3871s. So we look at the fact that they don't achieve IPXXB. And we go, okay, fine. We may label the front of them. I have a label that I actually specifically use. I don't have any examples of it here. It's at my centre. Where there are 3 tick boxes. And we call these high-risk panels. And if the panel has, once you open up the front, a upstream device of 100 amp or more, so a potentially large arc flash risk, has potentially 2 sources of energy, so one isolator may not turn the thing off, or no finger safe protection. So something inside this panel isn't to IPXXB, then we tick that box, or that relevant box is, put it on the front. And what that means is, from a management perspective on their site, when they issue authorizations, this is something else I'm currently discussing with another committee, when they issue an authorization to an individual, you may think, oh, electrician's an electrician, an engineer's an engineer, a mechanical guy's a mechanical guy, but there'll be different levels of authorization and different levels of control. And so if their panel is high risk, they then have to have a sanction put in there, or they have to have an escalated level of risk control instead of just being generally permitted.
Yeah, because they won't permit a live working.
They won't permit, no. Paragraph 69 of HSG 85.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so it's very, it's very interesting, but it's not as simple as we want to make it. Our industry is all about, flow diagrams. Do this, and then this. And then simplify the hell out of it. Even now we're chewing on that because we're thinking, well, hang on, what about neutral current diversion? Shouldn't we have to check for the presence of current, especially if we're not on private systems? If we're on a public system and a TN system, we've got to consider the neutral current diversion risk. Even on TT systems, it could be there. So energy is everywhere. Yeah, photovoltaics feeding back as well. So the safe isolation procedure needs to actually be redone, and it should be, from a training perspective, it should be a lot more in depth. Because when you go to companies and sites, you can spend an entire day covering safe isolation because they just don't understand all these different challenges that you have.
Yeah, we have challenges with UPS system in the building. It uses an emergency light central battery backup system. That causes a bit of an issue. We got one board we can't touch at the moment because we got a voltage disappearing across the FP's insulation foil. When we turn off the UPS, the supply to the UPS kicks in. Emergency lighting comes on for the inverter. It's now
feeds back through the foil, and then you've got no separation.
Yeah. To add to the isolation as well, I think one thing we miss a lot of is barriers, and like you said, signage on the actual devices, i.e. the panel.
Well, again, the signage, is it ISO 7010 or something?
Yeah, something like
Let me Google that.
See it in HSG 85, I believe.
ISO 7010. God, I'm an idiot.
So
ISO 7010.
With the engineer's name on it. Why it's isolated.
But I go to client site and they'll have their own decorated label of danger or hazard instead of using the internationally recognized, symbols that we have. Again, when you do a safe isolation, or again, I do like a duty holder assessment, this is the stuff I look for. As well as many, many other little areas, is how they use their panel risk management. It's how they control their information to their engineers, and it's how they select their contractors. The biggest one that always gets into a deep discussion is their equipment maintenance, the PAT, because they always just fall victim to the industry. That's an industry that needs some kind of work. It needs something, because right now everyone in the industry isn't helping employers. It's just heavily abused.
I must admit, I also threw in a bit of 537.4, so I made sure that they understood the devices can isolate. And what level, you got AC 21s, 22s, 23s, on load, off load, make and break, going through that. And it was a long toolbox talk, to be honest. I think they all bought.
That's good. Obviously, you logged that for your CPD records, for your CPS?
Yeah, CPD for CPS and ECOMs. Cool. All the lads sign off on it. We're doing one next week on housekeeping, which is very important. Yes, it is.
Very, very important. Data management, quality checking, those things can easily be overruled. No time for this. Get this done. Move the resources, stretch them thin. It's the same in training. Quality, all the colleges I've worked with, can you do this one? Can you do this one? No time for quality anymore. Get them through. Anything that loses quality, anything where you take quality and you decide to stretch it or not allow it to happen, you'll fall foul of it at some point. It's always the way. My CPD this week, I had I had a couple of interesting ones. There was an interesting article a chap put up on LinkedIn about IEEE 1584, which is the arc flash standard in the United States, about closed box, open box, vertical, horizontal electrodes, and about the calculations not quite working with ETAP. So I had to jump into the books to kind of just revise some of that, and he was actually correct. So whether there's going to be some revisions or some interpretations, we're going to have a look at that. And I actually, Doug, I've got the book here.
Do you use ETAP?
I don't, but I want to. I want to get more experience with it.
It's very good software for levels.
Yeah, but so I'm more of a kind of on paper pen kind of person, but I need to start using it because the funny thing is, on paper pen I can go like yeah, but when I then use something in front of a client where I should use the software, I'm actually sometimes like I'm so much slower. So I need to really get more experience with using ETAP. So I had a good read of Jim Phillips' Arc Flash Calculations book this week. It's a bit of an old book, but I don't know if he's updated this yet. But is it pre-2018?
Old books are the best books. You don't want the new books.
Yeah,
old books are the best.
And obviously Mike Frayne. So I've got his book. So I've been in those books. This is just more about processes. The calculations really are in Jim's book. So I've been in the Arc Flash books this week. Doing a little bit on that, and then I've just been kind of like sorting some of my books out. So I just decided to have a little flick through the IT guidance notes because I buy them. I mainly research them on Vital Source, so I thought they look too brand new for something that probably next year I'm gonna have to buy again. The Amendment 4, most likely. I thought I better have a little flick. So I had a little flick through 6, 4, 5, and 2. 3 is obviously at work because of the courses. 1's at work. I use that with design, although 1 might be behind me actually. But those ones don't get an awful lot of time. So I had a little, just a little. There's some good bits on reactants in one of them. Overcurrent. Isolation and switching, I think, could do with a bit more in there, but I had a little read of those. But they smell too new. I've had them for like 3 or 4 years, and I clearly haven't been in those books enough. I use Vital Source too much for that.
I love Vital Source for what it does, and I don't know about you. Do you find it hard to learn off of Vital Source versus a book?
Definitely versus a book, because I mean, I've got Vital Source in front of me now. I haven't purchased it IETO1, but I'm reading it a lot lately, and I like to get away from the screen if I can. So if I'm about to read a book, I'd much rather log off and go and sit on the sofa while she's watching some kind of crap, and I can then just ingest this. So I'd like to get away from my screen as much as I can, because my work puts me in front of screens too much. But there are, unfortunately, as you know, there are just so many books. I can't be without Vital Source, but I do like to get away from the screen as much as I can. I'm actually tempted to even get just a tablet just to use as a reader, and I'll disconnect all the social, because when I use anything like that, it's got almost social media stuff in. So I'll sit down to read something, and I'll get and I get completely distracted. That's actually why I got the Paper IO a couple of years ago, to just do some proper little projects works. But I might get a little e-reader just so I can just disconnect the social media off of it and do that. I can't remember why, but I was also in James Cook's books this week. I don't know what it was for. That's completely left me as to why I was in there. But no, so my CPD, I think, was probably Arc Flash and just revising some of the guidance notes book. This is something that we discussed before we started this. Next year, Amendment 4.
Yay.
New colour, new book. Most likely rewrites of sections on, generator sets and things like that. We know that's coming, obviously, to kind of adjust things. There's just, there's interesting areas. I mean, you mentioned before about, maybe the use of open pen may be used in other areas where the wine regulations doesn't like the use of TNCS systems. That could be explored. So it's likely that there'll be a lot. We know in the draft, does quite a bit more. The comments are, we'll see how much that comes through. I've got some understanding of areas that weren't in the draft that are being worked on. More of a simplification, if you will. But the changes I'm aware of will result in a few of the guidance notes being republished. So I expect there'll just be a full reprint of everything. How much of that stuff gets updated, I don't know. But I think I'll just stick with using Vital Source from now on, because whilst I like having these books, I've got about 4 or 5 different versions of Guidance Notes 3 and different versions of Guidance Notes 1 over the years. And I should just kind of like get rid of the old ones, but it's nice to know where things changed. On Vital Source, I can see the old versions as well, but I think I might just start, instead of buying all those books physically, I might just use Vital Source for those, and then keep buying older books or alternative books, because I think definitely for the first 15 years of my career, I just kept buying the same 5 books or so when they kept getting republished. Snags and Solutions, I bought 3 or 4 different versions of those with the NIC. Obviously the regs, the on-site guide, Guidance Notes 3, I bought them again and again and again. And it was only really when I started doing consultancy and I started speaking with Mr. Skirm that I tried this book and I tried that book and I'd get that book, and I found them very, very different with the way that they were written, and I'd learn more by just reading from a different language point of view. So I think moving forward, I'll probably less of the repeated updated books and more of the unique ones I'll try to source into.
Well, I think I have the entire backlog of World of Books at the moment. My missus is absolutely going mad at me. The cable management system book I've read fully. I got stuck into some interesting bits in there with cable ties and the operating temperature and how much they can hold and when they're not so good.
Okay, like nylon cable ties?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's nylon cable ties up to 140 degree.
So nylon cable ties run up to 140 degree.
Yeah, 65 starts, 140 finish.
Is that...
No, that might not be to every manufacturer now, and the materials might not be the same, because that book was like in 1980 something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going at the moment on a journey through the standard of cable ties.
Well, have fun with that one.
Yeah, I'm just see if it's in there, because we do use them. Very handy in there. It has trefoil clamps and LSF.
Mm-hmm.
Even back then, LSF kind of cable.
So what is this book? If you put your hand next to it, it might clear up. Focus, Daniel.
Focus.
No.
I'll read it out. Switchgear and Protection. Technical publications.
Where'd you get that from?
Amazon, I believe. Mm-hmm. The knowledge of switchgear and apparatus protection plays an important role in the power systems. And the book is structured to cover key aspects of switchgear and protection.
It
goes through a lot of.
Is it a UK book?
Stuff. It is.
Oh, cool. Little hidden gems. Little hidden gems, hey.
It's got some really good things with gen sets in there. I just scanned them through because that's mainly why I wanted to look at it, because we got a sort of 434.5.1 cascade kind of fault current issue at the moment, where we have to limit the fault current down through protective devices.
Okay, and how are you doing that?
The lead designer is thinking of current limiting through I2T, using ETAP, and basically taking a breaker down to 10 kA inside a panel distribution center. So it's fed off a transformer protection.
Yeah.
Into an ACB.
Is that because it's close to transformer? What's the reason for having to do that?
The reason is the controller panels for a boiler set, for example, we got is 10 kA only. I mean, it's very, very low.
Yeah.
We got a generator literally in the next, transformer in the next room.
Yeah.
We got a 1.2 megawatt CHP in the room next to that.
So you're going to put a device in with so the let through is going to obviously throttle that down.
Yeah, the let-through energy, hopefully, it's all software now, so not hopefully. The idea was, and this is what I don't get in my head, I really don't. So we got transformer, ACB, MCCB in the panel, NSX, micrologic 2.2, going out to a PDP center, probably 15 meters away at 150 mil 4-core cable.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, we got another MCCB going out to a control panel, probably 40 meters away at 120 mil.
Mm-hmm. And which part of all of that is the sensitive bit? Is that at the very end of that? That's 10K sensitive.
Yeah, the very end, they want to change the breaker from a 50K, I believe it is, down to a 10.
Down to a 10.
Now, I don't. In my head, it's like, why are we lowering it?
Yeah.
Because surely if we got, say, 32Ka at this panel and I'm putting a 10K in, that kind of exceeds it in my head. But then, obviously, the software's worked out that it's catching bits of the current as it's going.
And so technically, it should kind of like bounce, and then it should gradually throttle down once it gets there through all those other MCCVs and ACVs and things. But
cascade,
so your software will have all of that in one line. It will then have the actual profile, and it will then get down to under 10K at the other end. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm just trying to understand it myself, because it, like you say, in my head, I'm going 40, 50K now down to a 10. Hang on a minute, what have I got at this panel now? And then I'm trying to work out what's at this panel. Somebody else is working out all the fault current levels, so I don't really have to. But as a joint thing that we do, we work with the designers to kind of help each other.
Yeah.
The guy actually rang me up, and he's quite a nice guy to speak to. And he was
when you get into that space, though, where it's where we turn I squared T into A squared S. When we talk about let through energy values, instead of going, this current times this time, we just go, how many 100,000 amps is it, and all this stuff. It's software and manufacturer specific data. It just kind of does it for you at that point. It is sometimes hard to kind of understand, what really is happening with the energy, but it's just, I guess, let through energy is the best way to describe it.
I do find design interesting with installation, because as we're progressing with the 17 dBs, we got a plant room to do, and suddenly an extra water heater has been added in and some showers been taken out, and we're going to now use this water heater. But now 3 water heaters have appeared with 4 times 3 kilowatt element.
Yeah.
It was going to be fed off that board. We're going to have to feed it off this board. It's like...
Well, that changes all those characteristics, doesn't it? Yeah.
So what I've done is I've had to then draw out on the plan, move the ladder over that we're doing, and then draw out the sections of tray with how I'm going to lay the cables out, because I've now gone from 8 cables to 12. Now I have to have a triangular setup of bunching.
Yep.
And spacing, and
that's
I've
changing all your design, isn't it?
Change it completely.
Yeah.
So that caused a bit of a challenge, and then I had to keep, because the isolators will not fit a 35 mil 4-core in them.
No.
And I can get a 25 mil if this cable's left a hell of a lot alone. No grouping. So now I got to make sure the cable pullers don't start putting it all together. I got to be there to make sure they don't start taking this cable somewhere I don't want it to go, because I'll be in a world of pain and I'll have to put 35 mil in. I can't get any isolator.
I think in that sense, it's going to be more economical for you to literally observe the cable pull.
Yes.
Because you don't want to have that pulled in, then have to get that changed from a quality perspective. Exactly. Yeah. You have to babysit that job, mate. Watch the cable pull. Make sure you're happy as the designer that it's been done how you want it.
I was hoping we could do that one together.
Okay. Yeah. Well. We'll talk and we'll see what I've got availability wise.
And you like fun fault current levels and stuff? Come on by.
That sounds fun. All right, we're going to wrap this one up, but just last bit from me. 2396 results have come in the last couple of days. So for anyone who's listening who's had a go this year, if you were successful, fantastic, well done. If you were unsuccessful, then just take a moment to kind of breathe and then plan to move on. Your next exam, whichever your provider is, next exam is in December for the sitting guilds. I will be putting some stuff online because I've had, as I said earlier, I've had so much demand for more design stuff. So I'm going to start a little series, probably end of August through September and October, which will lead up to the exam in December. and I'll go through the bits. But the most important point is, we'll wait for the chief examiner reports and stuff. But it's not something that it should be too hard to crack once you're experienced with the 3-hour written problem. Sitting down for 3 hours. It is just a exasperated wine regulations exam, or 8 questions out of those 10 are. So we will be doing more discussions about the 2396. Dave's done his, so we will be doing some more design talks about that course leading up to December. So anyone who needs to resit or who's doing it for the first time, then keep listening, and we'll be doing a lot more talk about that course as we get closer to it. And also we'll be putting some stuff on the channel to kind of give you some interactive exercises to do, just to kind of get your head in the game for the next course. But if you were unsuccessful, chin up, keep moving. You can keep your project going in the meantime. Lots of people are unsuccessful, maybe just due to just the marathon of the exam. So keep pushing forwards. We had one guy who passed. He got a distinction. Lloyd, well done, mate. He came up last time. He was distracted from work. And he came. When I say he came up, I mean he came from London up to me in the northeast. People travel quite far to get to me. Apparently, I had guys on the battery storage course this week. I had a guy from Scotland and a guy from Portsmouth. I can't seem to deliver courses to my neighbours. Everyone keeps travelling to me. But yeah, this chap, he travelled up from London the first time. His head wasn't in the game. He decided not to do the exam. Well, had a go, but he wasn't ready. And then this time, he over-prepared, in my personal opinion. He was everywhere, revising. I told him to go away and cool off on exam day. He cooled off. He came back in. He had a good go at it. And getting through all the questions was the key thing. Having a go at every question is key. Some people just fall short. They don't get to the 9th or the 10th question. And you're losing 20 or 40 marks doing that. You've got to have the time management to get a go at every question. He managed to do that, and he's come out with a distinction. He's really, really shocked. He's like, huh? He's already like most, he goes, I'll come back in December. But now he's done that. So well done to you, mate. And a couple of others who've passed as well. If you want more support with 2396, then we will be bringing that on board on the channel, because I think that's definitely something that a lot of people push to me to get. So we'll do that. Anything else? Any last bits from you, mate?
That's been very good as always, mate, and good luck to everyone on 2396. It is a beast, and it's definitely a step up from any other sort of thing we got in our industry at the moment.
Yeah, it's good though. It's good fun. All right, buddy. We'll talk about some other work bits this week, but I will. I'll close this podcast off now. Let me just get that button. And again, we'll try and get another one. We can try and do these at least every other week, maybe every week if we can find them. See you soon, guys.